Hello everybody, welcome back to Project Launch Site. Today we're going to be talking about how to support the people who are willing to brave the vastness of space for the benefit of us humans on Earth. The journey is filled with many trials and we want to make sure that we are able to support them as much as possible and bring them back home as healthy as possible. On Earth, we have a constant force of gravity pulling us towards the center of the Earth at all times. This means that our bones and muscles have developed so that we don't get crushed by our own weight. In space, there is little to no gravity. Even on the Moon and Mars, there is significantly less gravity than there is here. The effects of prolonged exposure to microgravity environments include but are not limited to muscle atrophy, decreased bone density, and cardiac deconditioning. So, to get a better picture, look at it like this. Take two people with a similar physical build that both have the same gym routine, diet, etc. At a certain time, the first of the two continues the routine with the normal standards. The second person switches the weight that he's working out with from this normal standard to 0 pounds. This continues for about a year. Which one would you say would be overall healthier? If you guessed the first one, you would be correct. This is because there's no strain on the muscles, in space, because there's just no gravity. There's no strain from gravity, so everything just kind of floats around. The way that we have decided to mitigate this is exercise. According to NASA, astronauts spend about 2 hours a day using special exercise equipment exercising. This equipment is designed specifically to work in low gravity situations so that they don't have as many health defects when they get back to Earth. Also, one more way of mitigating this issue would be spinning the spacecraft, essentially replacing the force of gravity with centrifugal force. This, however, has not been tested a lot. Another possible solution is wearing weighted clothing on the Moon and, when we get to it, Mars. There have been talks about setting up facilities on both bodies, and since gravity still exists but is to a much lower extent, wearing weighted clothing could make up the difference between the gravity of Earth and the gravity of the Moon and Mars. The Earth also protects us from harmful radiation produced by the sun and other sources by its atmosphere and its magnetic field. Those protections are not afforded to us in space. Luckily, we have found ways to mitigate this amount of radiation. The large majority of radiation is very not harmful radiation like UV, alpha, and beta. To begin, we have built visors on spacesuits specifically made not to let copious amounts of UV radiation through. And also the walls of the spacecraft are lined to protect against alpha and beta radiation. There is a small caveat though. When more energetic types of radiation come into play, like gamma radiation. In orbit, astronauts are protected from copious amounts of it due to Earth's magnetic field. Long distance travel, like going to Mars, does not have the same protections. One option would be to layer up with lead and aluminum lined clothing and walls. This does limit the amount of radiation that gets through, small amounts of it still get through, and since this radiation is formed from highly energized particles, that can still be very dangerous. Currently, NASA is working to develop a better solution to this problem before we start sending people outside of our magnetic field. It's only a matter of time. So, I think we've all kind of felt it in this past year where we're kind of all like locked up in our houses. We couldn't really go anywhere. But imagine if you're up in space with only a few people with you for a year or more. It's going to be pretty hard because you don't have like your family with you. It's just some people that you train with that you might be friends with, you might not be. Um, but it's still it's going to be hard because you don't have your family there, and communication between between Earth and where you are is going to be kind of hard because of the distance. So how are we going to support? How can we support our astronauts mentally? So one way is bringing some things from home with them, whether it's small instruments or mementos from home. This could greatly improve morale amongst the crew members, as well as kind of remind them that where they're coming from and where they're going to be returning to. Another way we can help improve mental health with astronauts is having trained mental health professionals as members of the crew. For longer missions like missions to Mars in the future, this might prove to be necessary, um, because the mission to Mars is around 520 days, which is about a year and a half. That's one year round. That's how it takes to get there, and getting back is also going to be another year and a half. So it's going to be a very long trip with only a few people in order to conserve resources. So having trained mental health professionals on the crew would be a great help. Also, although this is already implemented, having the crew like kind of train and live together, so that they kind of know how they'll react when in actual situation. This could kind of improve the bonds between the crew members, and so that they come to treat each other like family as well. What are some key takeaways? So we know that gravity is a very important part of our daily lives, as well as protection from radiation. We learned that in space, a lot of these things aren't we're not able to have them in space because we're not on the Earth. Um, we learned that astronauts need mental health support as well, and we learned about some ways that we can help them out with that. That's where I'm going to end the video today. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Have a great day.